In our 10-year history, Living Waters has consistently and overwhelmingly helped in times of both crisis and disaster. Tornadoes in Washington, Illinois and Joplin, Missouri, hurricanes that have struck along our coastline, hurricanes, typhoons, and volcano eruptions internationally. Most recently, when severe flooding struck in Malawi and left thousands without food or the ability to grow crops, Living Waters team members from Marion Wells requested that our Lenten Wells funds be allotted immediately to help in this crisis, and together we were able to help feed over 200 families for a month. To take it one step further, Living Waters doesn't even wait for tragedy to strike before acting. We know that trouble will occur, that times of crisis will come upon our neighborhood, our country, and our world, that disaster will strike where least expected, and we move proactively as our national mission team gives quarterly to the Disaster Relief Fund for Lutheran Church Charities. As a church body, Living Waters has directly given over $70,000 to mission partners to help in times of crisis and disaster. And if we look deeper, I know that we would find thousands more in indirect giving and a countless number of hours of time both physically with our hands and feet and prayerfully on our knees. But what about COVID-19? How will Living Waters respond? How have we responded? When some of our local neighbors and family were struggling, we started a food pantry and helped provide groceries to families for not just weeks, but months. Many have reached out financially through organizations like Midwest Food Bank to again help to provide food for our neighbors and family, both locally and nationally. But what about our neighbors and family internationally? I was talking with Pastor Mark recently, and he said that the phrase first world problems has taken on a whole new meaning. Did anyone actually run out of toilet paper? Did we lose our appetite because we couldn't sit down inside of our favorite restaurant and had to settle for curbside pickup? Did we lose sleep because we couldn't get our haircut or go to the movies or to the beach? Many of our neighbors and family worldwide were living day to day even before the lockdowns began. Then suddenly, when they weren't able to go out and work as day laborers, they did not have weeks of food stored away. They weren't able to file for unemployment plus receive an extra $600 in benefits. They didn't receive a stimulus check. We need to continue to reach out both locally and worldwide. Now, while it's hard to physically help right now with our different levels of shelter in place, we are still able to help both financially and prayerfully. Now continue with me to hear how you can help our family in Guatemala from the ministry leaders of 3 different but connected services in the village of Santa Maria de Jesus.
I'm delighted to introduce Brenny McMillan, and her mother, Robin McMillan, and Lisa Keller. Brenny, who I'm sure many of you know, has visited Living Waters a couple of times in the last 4 years. She's the co-founder of a mission called Harvesting Happiness, or Cosechando Felicidad, and has made her home in the village of Santa Maria de Jesus as a full-time missionary serving the elderly people there. And Lisa and Robin, along with their spouses, founded the Moving Mountains Mission almost 15 years now, I believe. And they've been partnering we've been partnering with them for the past 5 or 6 years, going on the Guatemala mission trip, as you all know. An outgrowth of this mission is the GIFTS program that enables child education sponsorship. Now, we've been partnering with, like I said, for over 5 years now, sending a team from Living Waters. We have a few sponsor kids in the GIFTS program, Freddie and Lady, all of you know, who we sponsor as a church, and then a handful of others that the church members sponsor, individual families. The mission of Cosechando Felicidad is near and dear to our hearts, and we've tried to partner in several ways with them as well. Our church is intimately aware of what the mission in Santa is all about, and from our many mission updates that we've been giving over the years. So my question, ladies, to you, what has your experience been with the Living Waters Church partnership and the mission team members that you have interacted with?
Your friends from Living Waters, it seems like we've known you guys a lifetime. And I guess just because from the moment that we met the folks from your church, you just became part of our family. Every year when you send people to help us on our mission teams, your volunteers that you send are among our most trusted, valued members of our team. A lot of your team we have entrusted in areas of leadership on our mission. both faith leadership and work leadership. And those are positions that, as the Moving Mountains team leaders, we take those positions really seriously.
Hello, Living Waters. We've been missing you all. I hope I get to come and see you all soon. Coming to visit your church and sharing with your team in Guatemala is some of my most treasured times and memories, just because I know how willing your church, your congregation is to step up and do really tough, difficult things and really have an intimate personal relationship with the people of Santa. And my team have felt very supported, like emotionally, spiritually, physically, by your church, and they have stepped up in ways that a lot of other people, I guess, wouldn't have even thought about.
I think one of the things that stands out for me as one of the administrators of the sponsorship program is not only the generosity of your church, but I think the support throughout the year, not only just during the mission week, but throughout the rest of the year. I know Gretchen has helped us tremendously by doing the weekly Facebook posts of the kiddos that are available for sponsorship.
So normally this time of the year, preparations would be at a peak for us to make that annual trip to Guatemala. It would have been in 3 weeks' time, and it's tough for us not to be there. As with everything else in the world, this mission trip also has been impacted, postponed to 2021 because of the virus situation. And if we think life has been difficult for us, we absolutely have no idea. So help us understand what life in Santa Maria has been.
Now there's a toque de queda, or a shelter in place, which has been implemented. Right now it's from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. You're not allowed in the street. You can't go for a walk. You can't go to the store. Everyone has to be inside except for essential workers or people that have a permit. And a lot of people go to sell their products and their produce in different departments, which has all been restricted. There's currently no public transportation, which is what the majority of the population relies on to move themselves and their products. There's just a lot of different restrictions in place to keep them safe, but economically it is definitely taken its toll on them, simply because they cannot move not only themselves, but the things that they need to sell around the country.
I think coupling the pandemic with poverty has just completely escalated family situations. From our partners that we communicate with regularly, we have learned that some of the families have decided to shelter in place together. So what might be a family of 8 to 10 people, they have tried to gather some of those families together. And how that impacts is when we are making when our partners are making a food delivery, they're expecting to be able to deliver food to 8 to 10 people. But when they get to the house, they realize that now there's perhaps 20 or 30 people in that location. So that makes a delivery of food. They're trying to make that supply last even longer. So I think that that's a little bit difficult. And I also think that the lack of work and the quarantines have had a huge impact on, as Bren said, the families that can't get to work or they can't take their produce to sell. And the penalties for going against the government are very, very stiff. And so families are desperate for help.
I think here so much of the pandemic was an unknown, and we have access to the 24-hour round-the-clock news feeds and everything like that. And I think being in remote, and although a lot of there is plenty of cell phone communication and some internet things, I think just the fear of the unknown would have to weigh on a lot of the families, especially for the elderly or the people who maybe don't have access to information. I think it could be a scary time.
All three missions have taken several different steps to put a lot of different programs in place, whether it is food delivery or I know Harvesting Happiness has been doing a lot of medical support and things like that as well. So help us understand what kind of programs are in place, what are steps that our partners there are taking.
We've thankfully been able to continue serving 3 meals a day to the elderly. Because of the way the shelter in place is and the amount of time that it takes us to reach all the different houses, we serve breakfast in the morning, and thankfully we have some volunteers on motorcycles that come around and deliver all of that. And then around 11 o'clock, they have both lunch and dinner prepared in containers, and the volunteers come back and are able to go drop off them lunch that's heated and then dinner that they can heat up later. Us being able to go in and check in on them. A lot of these people don't have anyone checking in on them. We would expect them to come every day at the project. So a lot of it is just like us making sure they're okay, making sure that they have everything they need in their house, and being that it is the elderly, making sure they haven't fallen or gotten hurt in some way in their house. A lot of people are like, you should just go once a day. It would save you so much time, but so much of it is just checking on their welfare that we think it's important to go multiple times a day. Grocery bags to underprivileged families and single moms. We have expanded it. So right now we're doing 60 bags a week with our partners at Steps of Hope, which is an English school there, and also 100 bags a week with Cosecando Felicidad and our volunteers. We've been trying to give the opportunity of work to those who are struggling right now. So thankfully they've been able to go around weekly and hand out tickets for people to come and receive their groceries once a week. So there's two benefits to it. The grocery aid is being distributed and people still have work.
Too, the GIFTS program has also been accepting donations, monetary donations to help with the food distribution as well. But I think one of the important aspect, not only the material things and the food that we're able to supply, but just the fact that they know that we, even though we're not coming this year, that they still matter to us, and we're still trying to do what we can, even though we're thousands of miles away from them. It's more the moral and spiritual support that we can give as well.
And we are also, when we had talked with the Directiva, the leaders of the village, and we told them about our decision to postpone our work until 2021. We also wanted them to know, as Robin said, that even though we're not coming, we wanted them to know that we wanted to be able to help them in some way. So we asked them very directly, what is your number one concern? And they said it's food. And so we are able to, we've sent 2 significant donations down to purchase dry goods and basic supplies. We're able to get now food to over 200 families. The food that it's about $25 per bag, and that will last, they say, between 3 and 4 weeks of food per family. So we've been able to do that twice, so serve over 100 families. Our partners in the village told us that where they're going to now are the most remote pieces of Santa. They're way out in the middle of the edges of the town. If you've served on our mission team before, you understand a little bit about how hard it is for those people to get the things that they need. And so that is right now, that is our priority, because that is by far the biggest need in the village. Through time, it is our hope and our desire that some of the projects that we had hoped to do this summer, for example, some of the families who have been waiting to get a roof project, we'd like to be able to see that those get put on, as well as the bunk beds that we have ordered the supplies for. We would like to see that those bunk beds are installed and put in the houses of the people who've been waiting for a year for that. But frankly, there are some people who depend on the work that we give through our mission to sustain them. Primary example would be our drivers that we hire. A lot of them, the work that they do for us in the summer, that's able to sustain their families for a good period of time. So right now they're not allowed to contract services, so they have been unemployed for a very long time. So we made a monetary donation toward our drivers just to help them during a difficult time. The head of that, we asked him, he knows the men and he knows their needs well, and we just asked him if he could use his best judgment. And by far our chicken bus driver, Freddie, he said was very much in need. So he wanted to share a good part of that donation with him. And so I felt really honored to be able to help in those things. But the fire department there reached out to us because we partner very closely with some of their members, and they did not have a scanning thermometer. And they were concerned about going in and checking on really sick people. And he asked if when we made a donation, would we consider helping them to purchase a scanning thermometer for their safety. So we were able to do that as well.
Thank you. And Lisa, if you can continue that thought on even through these times, the leadership there, the Directiva and the Muchachos and their, that are with Harvesting Happiness, all the volunteers that come in and play, their attitude through this has been something worth looking up to, even for us, right? So share a little bit about that.
Would really like your church family to know that our decision to postpone our work was probably one of the most difficult decisions that we had to make. Obviously, it's the one that made sense, but it was so difficult emotionally because we believe so much that our God is big and our God is strong and he can do anything and he can move mountains. And personally speaking, I just expected a miracle. But through all of that, then we said, if we can't come, do you have volunteers that could help get some things done? And the answer was, of course, a resounding yes. As they write me this beautiful note that says, my dearest Lisa, we are not afraid. Our God is bigger than any virus, and we are not afraid of you. And we know that God will keep us safe, and we know that God will keep you safe. And so they're always, in their ways, always pointing me towards a greater faith. They have taught me so much about what faith looks like. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little teary about that. It's just a beautiful little thank you note. And it said something to the tune of this: thank you for your unconditional love and your unconditional help. Only you can look at our village with the eyes of Jesus Christ. Only your heart would think to buy something as insignificant as a thermometer, because even the small needs are important in your eyes. Thank you for loving our people like we come from the same blood. And thank you for reminding us that God is with us, even when you are not here. Food delivery. This was during the time where the tropical storms and the hurricanes were hitting that region. And our volunteers there were absolutely soaked to the skin. I mean, the pictures of them, they had garbage bags over top of them and they had their face masks. And they said, we cannot wait for the rains to stop. We have families that are starving. We have to get them this food. And I just have so much respect for them.
I know when Guatemala first initiated their shelter in place, I had a video call with one of our staff members. And I said, how's it going? How's morale? And she says, we're stuck inside. My family of 10 plus is all unemployed and we're running out of food. How do you think it's going? And I was like, well, what can I do for you? How can we help you? And she says, oh, that wasn't to make you feel bad for me. I just know that we've been through worse. We'll get through this too. I was just letting you know the situation. And I think it's just such a testament to their resilience and their positive outlook. And even in the absolute worst situations, they can take it in stride, honestly, and just know that they have become so strong and so resilient because of all of the things that they've gone through. I really love having these open conversations with them during the time of quarantine because it's kind of been a roller coaster of emotions, I think, for a lot of them. At the beginning, it was definitely fear, should we keep going out? Should we be in the streets? What should we be doing? What's our next step? We're gonna be okay. This will end. We gotta do what we need to do. I remember getting a message just last week, and it was actually one of the people who came and got meals from us on a regular basis had fallen and passed away, and she had absolutely no family. And so our volunteers and staff members there stepped up to pay for all the funeral expenses, cosechando felicidad, and not only to pay for it, but to organize the burial.
I just want to thank Living Waters for always being such a support, and praying the leaders of Moving Mountains, when times get tough, to pray us through the hard times, and just for your unending love and support.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I know we're just so grateful for the love of your family of Living Waters. And as Robin said, the people who are praying us through and the people who knew that this decision to postpone was very hard on the heart. Very smart to do, but very hard on the heart. And we're just so thankful that, you've prayed us through. And
No, just thank you again for all the support that Living Waters has given us. And I can't tell you how many messages I get on a weekly basis from people from your church just checking in on us. How's everything going? Do you need anything? What can we do? And that really means a lot. There's not many people that think of us. I don't think that often. And I know that when they're thinking of us, they're praying for us. And we really can't do any of this without the support of men. It is way too big of a job. And it's just so meaningful to us to know that we have a place to go to, that we have family to count on, because that's the only way we're ever going to get through any of this.
we just want to thank the team at Living Waters for everything that they do for us. And we're going to ask them to continue to pray for us as we now start transitioning our plans to 2021.
Now, for the record, I could continue the conversation for hours to hear of God's work in that place through these ministries. But let me spend a few minutes to help drive the most important lesson that I think God is trying to teach us through this. Have you heard of the statement? This is the meaning of true love, to give until it hurts. It was Mother Teresa who said this in her address to the National Prayer Breakfast back in 1992 in Washington, D.C. It is an act of giving all that we have, be it finances or services, until the point where we feel the pain of our sacrifice. Giving until it hurts. Now, it can be easy for some people, but to others, it's a lot more difficult. Personally, I find the statement very hard to live up to, where these three ladies that we talked to and others like them are able to do so easily. In our scripture reading today, we see the story of the widow of Zarephath who Elijah encounters. 1 Kings chapter 17. He, that is Elijah, called, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." "As surely as the Lord your God lives," she replied, "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." She went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. When I think about the excuses that we make, let me speak about myself. The excuses I make when it comes to tithing and benevolence and giving, they're not as persuasive as this widow's would have been. After all, this is her last meal. But Elijah makes her an interesting promise. If she feeds him, she'll find that her supply of flour and oil will never run out. But the only way she'll discover that is whether this promise is true or not, whether this promise will come true in her life, is by giving away what she has. Let us also consider what the Apostle Paul says to the church in Macedonia, about the church in Macedonia in 2 Corinthians 8. "And now, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. In the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability. Entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the Lord's people." We see that the church in Macedonia was impoverished. No one would have been surprised if their response to those suffering in Jerusalem was, "We'd love to help, but we're strapped." Instead, they begged for the opportunity to take part in that relief effort. Here's the main point that I think the Zarephathian widow and the Macedonian church is teaching us, and our guest speakers are highlighting for us. Christian generosity is always a response to faith. While God's word doesn't say that we can give and never run out of resources, it does say that we should give because we can trust in the giver of every good and perfect gift to care for us. That's James chapter 1, verse 17 for you. It is easy to dream about the generosity we intend to show when we have the means. In other words, we keep thinking, I want to be generous, I really do. But I'll do it when I have the means, when I have more money. I'll be more generous at that time. But right now I'm strapped. The truth is that God cares more about the $1 that we give now when it really hurts than the $100 that we can give later when we have a few thousand to spare. When we look at our time and our resources in through the lens of the opportunity that is present before us, instead of through a veil of limitation, then there is no end to what God can do through us. The stories we heard today about the people of Guatemala and the testimonies of their attitude during these crazy times, hurting times, speak volumes about this. They don't have much, but they are far more generous than we are. They are our family and they are hurting. But their attitude during this time is not, let's hoard in case something worse could happen. Their attitude is, let's share because we have been blessed. Something has been given to us. Because we are blessed, let us be a blessing.
We gave them a new roof, and they showed us the true meaning of hospitality.
We built them a bunk bed, and they taught us friendship and community.
We poured them a cement floor, and they covered us with their love and compassion.
We played with them and shared Bible stories at VBS, and they showed us Jesus' heart.
We gave them a water tank to catch the rainfall. They showered us in a symphony of prayers.
We gave them a set of clothes for school, and they taught us how to dance.
Our family in Guatemala is hurting. Please join us in helping them.